Morning, everybody. Yeah, great to see everybody here. It's exciting time for us being able to jump back on the field here for spring ball, something that we haven't done in a long time, and so it's exciting that the team's done very very well throughout this initial off season period. Really really like the you team in a lot of areas. We've seen some signs of being a pretty mature team, and I think there's a lot of anticipation both from the players and coaches of getting back on the field here for spring ball. Obviously it's something that we missed last year. I think everybody recognizes the opportunity it is for us to develop as a football team and for these guys to continue their development as players. And so I think we've got a great plan together, and it looks like, at least right now, from a COVID protocol standpoint, that we're going to be close to business as usual. Fully expect to be able to conduct all of the 15 practices. We still certainly have some COVID protocols in place. We certainly haven't abandoned those by any stretch, and our team's responded well to that throughout this semester up to this point. We've had very few cases, very few instances of contact tracing. So our guys have done a nice job. They've been able to stay in the weight room, to stay engaged. And because of that, we've seen a lot of really impressive gains from several members of this team throughout this period. So excited to see some of those gains on display as we jump here into spring ball. We'll have the majority of the roster available in full for spring. Don't anticipate too many guys missing serious time. I think Pat Fields is probably the main one. He's had a little cleanup procedure that he's getting ready to have, that he'll miss the majority, if not all, of spring ball. Something that's pretty minor, but we'll go ahead and get that cleaned up, and if we get him some for the end of spring ball, great. If not, then he'll be certainly full go, ready to go as we jump into our summer period. Everybody else doing pretty well. Even with a handful of guys that has some different things done after the season that are all doing very well, and feel like that we're going to have most guys as full participants here in the spring, which is obviously exciting for us. So looking forward to it. From there, we'll answer some questions.
Okay, first one will go to Ryan Aber and then Eric Bailey. Ryan?
Yeah, Lincoln, wanted to ask you about vaccinations. How many of your staff and coaches have been vaccinated, and do you have a plan for that, for the staff, for the players moving forward?
Yeah, Ryan, it's been obviously a hot topic around here. I would say a large number of our staff has had the opportunity to be vaccinated and has taken advantage of that. We've been very fortunate, obviously, to live in a community where the vaccination has been pretty available, and there's so many people across the community and groups that have gone to far lengths to make that available. So we're very appreciative for that. And I would say our team, that was a conversation we started having with our team very early on in the spring. Not making up their mind for them, but just educating them on what the vaccine was going to be. Answering questions. Our medical team's been very involved with our team, and I do think we certainly have had some players that have already received the vaccine. I think I would say the number of players that are interested and that will get the vaccine has grown significantly in the last few months. I think there was a lot of hesitation initially, and I think a lot of that has been alleviated. And as it stands right now, I think a large number of our team will be vaccinated, and will be vaccinated at some point this spring.
Appreciate it, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Eric Bailey and then Joe Bettner.
Hey, Lincoln, I was wondering if you can give us an update on Kennedy Brooks, just his return to workouts. And, during a redshirt year, a player goes through practices when they're away from the game. What do you anticipate his return to football to be like this spring?
Yeah, he's participating fully as a member of the team. Working hard in the off season. I think he. Some of it for us is a little bit yet to be seen. You just got to get back on the field and see where they're at. I mean, you've got a guy obviously that's played a lot of ball and is a very smart football player that you feel like we'll be able to get back in a swing of things pretty quickly. But at the same time, anytime you're not on a football field for an entire year, it's different. I mean, it just is. So I'm sure there'll be certainly some adjustment period for him. But I'm excited to see him, and obviously a chance for him to work with Coach Murray. Didn't have that opportunity to work with him last year, and we're hoping that'll be a great fit, a great partnership, and we'll see. We'll see how Kennedy attacks this. Knowing him, I'm sure he'll attack it and be ready to go.
Thanks, Lincoln. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Joe Bettner, and then Jason Kersey.
Yeah, Lincoln, going to be another spring, obviously, where you can't have official visitors. I'm curious, I know you're kind of a wait and see kind of guy, but is there any growing optimism that this summer are you going to finally be able to get recruits on campus? And curious how those efforts are going just internally.
No, I think there is optimism. I think there's, I think the thing we have right now that we haven't had this entire time is I think there's a kind of an end in sight as far as the dead period. I do think there's a real effort to, be able to end the dead period in June and resume visits. And so we'll see how it goes. That's certainly something we're planning for the possibility of, and which will be unique. We haven't typically, featured just a ton of summer visits here, but if the June period does open up, then it'll be something we'll have to reassess and make a part of our plan.
Let's go to Jason Kersey and then Mason Young.
Yeah, Lincoln, despite losing Ronnie, when you look at what you guys have coming back on the defensive line, it seems like pretty impressive depth you've got back. But I was curious about so many of those guys can play different places along the line. Do you go in with Isaiah, Jaylen, some of those guys in certain positions now, or do you just sort of let them work everywhere until you find the right combination? How are you going to sort of assess that?
Yeah, there'll be a starting point for each guy, but you're right. We have a number of guys that, whether by kind of their mental capacity to play multiple positions or the physical skills or a combination of both. And best case scenario, we do have a number of guys that are going to have the ability to move around, and that's something we've taken pride in. I think just the creativity up front, being able to, within our base scheme, being able to create the different mismatches and put ourselves in kind of the best matchups that we possibly can up front is something that we pride ourselves on here defensively. We do, and matchups change week to week. They change in game, and we're able to attack those pretty seamlessly. And so now it's exciting. And now you've got, a handful of guys now, that now this is, kind of year 3 for them in this system, and they're starting to get very comfortable with what we're doing and assignments. And you can just tell all of that's a little bit smoother. So I would expect we'll have, we've had several guys the first couple of years here in this defensive system, but I think we'll have more this year that are able to move around, which will, hopefully make us better and more dangerous.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Okay, Mason Young, and then Bob Prisbillo.
Yeah, Lincoln, I was just wondering if you would be comfortable to address Spencer Jones's situation. Just your update on that, since we haven't heard from you on that previously.
Yeah, he's back with us. Still a few things he can't do from a health perspective, but back as a full member of the team. And as I understand, that process is still ongoing, so we'll continue to educate ourselves as it goes on. But he's back, full functioning member of the team, doing well, and teammates we're certainly happy to have him back.
Okay, Bob Prisbillo, and then John Hoover.
Lincoln noticed, Stacy, Jaylen Kennedy all officially back. Can you maybe sort of talk about the conversations you had to have with those guys in order to have them back on the team again?
Yeah, I mean, some of that started, when they made the decisions to opt out, in the first place, and us trying to get a gauge of kind of their plans, and then, we were, periodically checking in with the guys throughout the season last year to make sure their intention was still to be back here, and I think those guys were all checking in with us to make sure that our intention was still to bring them back here. So I think kind of was both sides. It was such a new situation that both sides, I think, were in a way kind of feeling out, the process of how it would go. But obviously there was kind of a breaking point around signing day last year where we had a pretty to the point conversation with all three, just making sure that, they were fully intent on coming back. We knew that Jaylen was, because he elected to come back, obviously, and start practicing with us on the scout team during the bowl prep. So we knew he was coming back, but we had conversations with the other guys. Their intention was to come back, and we we got them back, and they're, it's kind of, honestly, now it's honestly kind of like it never happened. You almost kind of forgot about it and just kind of back to business as usual.
Okay, John Hoover, and then Garen Emick.
Hey, Lincoln, you know me, you got to ask about quarterbacks. Last year, Spencer didn't get a spring. He got kind of a twisted up off season. And I think because of that contributed to the fact that he started one place and then was able to grow consistently throughout the season. Now that he's got a spring to really build on that season that he finished with last year, what kind of growth do you expect from him?
I expect him to improve a lot. No doubt about it. And then there's so many areas for him to grow. We've really challenged him physically to make some of the gains that we feel like that he is capable of making and needs to make. And that's that comes now from a guy that's, been through an off season where, so many guys, when they get here in an off season, it becomes almost about survival or just kind of doing, just kind of making it. And then a lot of times you see guys as they go further on to their careers, the off season goals for that player become a little more intentional. This is exactly what I'm trying to accomplish. And Coach Wiley kind of says it all the time. It's, these guys have to put in the extra time. And if you have big goals, then the, extra is not extra. He says that all the time. I mean, it's just part of what you should do. And so I think, for a lot of guys on our roster, Spencer included, this off season and the chance, one, to have a normal off season, and then the chance to build and really attack some of the areas physically that they have a lot of room to grow is very important. And I think some of that growth has started to happen. That's exciting. So certainly that's been an area that we've challenged Spencer, and I think he's really started to push and challenge himself maybe more than he has in the past. And so there's certainly a lot of things on the field to continue to work with. There's going to be new skill sets at the skill positions. There's going to be new offensive linemen to communicate with, new running backs. I mean, it's the same offense, but it'll continue to evolve, and there'll be a lot of differences that he's going to have to continue to get comfortable with. So I'm excited for him because I think there is so much potential growth, and be excited to attack it together.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Garen and then Barry.
Lincoln, the vaccines have given everyone reason to be optimistic about where all of this is headed, given the last year. Other programs, though, some high-profile programs are still having to shut down activities this spring. Do you use what others are dealing with your kids as a reminder to continue to be vigilant and sort of stay the course?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think it creates a sense of reality for us, without a doubt, and people are going to be more conservative in an off season as far as the threshold to shut something down. I mean, we get that. But at the same time, we can't have some false sense of security that this thing is over and we can just go back to not wearing masks or not distancing or not doing any of that. We've we still, have our facility. Basically, we're still using the entire facility. I mean, still meeting in the same areas that we did in the fall, which were to promote, those same things, distancing and not too many people in one space, all of that. So, I mean, we're still harping on it, certainly. It's and I think the thing for us is, we and the players, the staff and the players both agree how critical this offseason and spring ball period is for us. I mean, for kind of all the reasons that we've listed here before. And so if we put ourselves in a position where we have to shut down, we're putting ourselves at a major disadvantage. We're going to hurt guys' growth as players. We're going to hurt our growth as a team. So, we got to stay the course. And some of the examples across the country certainly are things that we can use to point to and hopefully we can learn from without having to experience ourselves.
Real quick, can you clarify the testing? Is it the same as it was during the season?
It's not. No, it's not. It's reduced. We're still testing every player on our roster. Each player is still being tested multiple times throughout the semester, but it's, we're certainly not testing 3 times a week, like we were during the season. So we're trying to kind of find that fine line, and I think our medical staff's done a great job.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Trammell and then Kerry Murdoch.
Yeah, Lincoln, since we last talked to you, Kansas made a coaching change. That scandal erupted. Concerning the issue of sexual harassment or just being a decent person, how much do you have to monitor that within your organization and remind people and educate them or whatever might be needed? How much do you have to stay on top of that, even if you've got what you consider a pretty good culture going on?
No, it's a great question. I mean, obviously that's become such a important topic, and rightly so, over the last several years. I would say this, our athletic department's been very proactive in the education of all staff members. We have required yearly Title IX training that we do, that are fairly intense sessions. Something we regularly discuss both with our team and our staff. I mean, certainly you'd like to sit there and think that, you hire people with great character and hire the right people that you don't have to worry about those things. But I think that's, I think it's got to go a step further, which I think is kind of what you're referencing. You can't just say, well, I know I hire great people, I don't have to look at this. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think, you've always got to have checks and balances. You've always got to have a culture, I think, of where if there is an issue going on, even if it's behind the scenes or somebody else, another employer hasn't seen it, that there's a culture that people can come talk to somebody and express any issues that could be going on. And so, we've certainly tried to do that, make sure our employees know that. And then certainly just making sure every employee here knows where the line is. And then if they cross the line, that there's going to be direct consequences. So it's, we take it seriously, and that starts from our athletic department and our president on down.
Kerry Murdoch and then James Hale.
Hey, Lincoln, I was wondering if you could talk about your receiver room going into spring, a very talented group, but, a bunch of guys that really have yet to take that next step. How much are you just looking to see that play out this spring and with the roster you got? And I was wondering if you could also maybe comment on how much you think coaches are looking at the NBA with their relaxed restrictions for guys that are vaccinated, what that could kind of mean for sports and overall.
Yeah, on the receivers, I would say, honestly, some of the, I think it'll be some of the most interesting position battles that we have this spring. That frankly for us was a position, by and large, although we had some great moments, that was a position that we weren't real thrilled about the way we played last year, and know that we can play better there. We know that we can coach better there. I mean, all of the above. It's something we've just all got to do a better job with. And part of that is, again, we had some great moments from that group, but part of it is we have such a high standard for the play of receivers here at Oklahoma, which just the standards are really, really high. And we believe we got the people in this building to to play and perform at those standards. So it'll be fun. You know, we're gonna move some guys around, create some interesting, I think, position battles. I think we've got some really well-defined goals for that group, for the individuals. We've a lot of our offseason with those guys has been kind of dedicated to challenging them in the areas that we weren't as good as we needed to be, and really finding guys that are going to attack those areas and turn those maybe what were weaknesses into strengths. And those are going to be the guys that we play with. So we certainly, I would say more than any position on the team right now, that is going to be a just true blank slate. I mean, we told the guys from day one when we came back that we're wiping everything that any of you guys have ever done, and we are starting with a clean blank slate. You know, we're going to do a better job coaching that position. We're going to really attack it, and those guys have had a great offseason so far, so I can't wait to see them on the field and see how these battles unfold. Second question on the vaccines. Yeah, I mean, I think we started creating that, at least the notion in our players' minds, not creating, but I think educating them early that you got to understand with this vaccine that we could get to a point where you're not tested, or you potentially maybe even, I don't know, this is maybe down the line, but don't have to wear a mask or maybe abide by some of the different rules if you've had the vaccine. And it could be a different set of rules for the people at some point that have not had the vaccine. That's possible. We don't know if it's going to happen, but it's, I think, certainly feasible. And so we just challenged our players early on that they needed to think in those terms, and think ahead of what it could mean. And so that's certainly been a part of the education with our guys. And I think it could have a huge impact. Obviously, on testing, I think it could have a huge impact on, how many people are able to come into the stadium and watch us play. It's, so far, I think it's been the responses to the vaccine have been in large very, very positive. And I think they, could have a great impact on both the kind of the inner workings of college football and then certainly the game days as well.
Okay, we've only got time for two more. We'll go to James Hale and then Josh Calloway.
Lincoln, in your offensive line, you brought in some guys. It's going to create some great competition, both at guard, with the transfer guys you brought in and things like that. You talked about maybe you'll open things up at wide receiver. How about offensive line, where you seem to have a lot of good players that are going to battle for playing time?
Yeah, very, very similar. Very, very similar, and in some ways similar to the question about the defensive line earlier, and that I do believe we've got a number of guys in there that could play multiple positions. And, whether it's guys that can swing and play both guards, I think we've got a couple of guys that are going to work at center that also have the ability and will get reps at guard as well. We have a couple of guys like Eric Swenson and Tyrese Robinson that can play both guard and tackle. And so it'll be really interesting to see how it unfolds. I don't know that I can remember a spring that, you look at it and you try to, maybe look ahead and think what could the, that starting group of offensive linemen look like by the time we get to fall. And man, it could literally go like 20 different directions. I mean, it really could, because like I said, there's just so much flexibility. And then there's a lot of unknown, with the two transfers and with a couple of these young guys in here that I think have really taken some steps. And then obviously we'll get a couple more guys in here when June rolls around. So be fun to see it evolve. I think it's got a chance to be a talented group, another group that's, I think had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder here this offseason and a lot of competition, which is, as a coach, you love those two things.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question this morning, Josh Calloway.
Yeah, Lincoln, just wanted to ask about the secondary, just expectations for that unit, and I guess how important the spring is for, guys like Woody Washington, DJ Graham, guys who didn't get to have a spring last year. Obviously, I imagine will be expected to be big contributors, once the season comes around.
Yeah, absolutely. In another position, again, a little bit the theme here that there is some unknowns and there's a lot of talent. There's new faces. There's going to be a lot of competition. I think the safety positions to start off, it'd be fun to see how they play out. And obviously, with Pat not going through the majority, if not all of spring, it's going to open up a lot of reps for several guys to get looks in there. I think, some really intriguing guys. You see some guys that have been in the program like a Bryson Washington, that's had some reps, had a chance to be behind the scenes a little bit. That's going to get an opportunity to really shine. You got, some new guys coming in like Key Lawrence and Billy Bowman, Jordan Mukes. I mean, kind of those guys that you can't wait to just get out there and see what they're all about. I think Jeremiah Cordell is one that we're really excited to see this spring, that really closed the season strong and has had a tremendous offseason. Guy we've got a ton of confidence in right now at that nickel spot. And then the corner is very interesting as well. Again, some guys, that didn't play a ton, that you feel like are, this is kind of their time when they can start to make a move. But Josh Eaton certainly in that category. Jaden Davis has had a really good offseason. Can't wait to see him. Certainly expect a lot of growth out of DJ and Woody both. And then, we've got a couple newcomers in there with obviously Latrell and a couple others. So it'll be fun to see. It really will. Justin Harrington back from injury. There's a lot of different combinations. There'll be a lot of competition in that group, but it should be a fun group to watch.